What's up, friendly neighborhood nerds? Today, we're welcoming back our buddy, Joshua Dysart. We've chatted extensively with him in the past about Harbinger, Imperium, and his other Valiant stuff. Today, the topic will be Odinns Eye, his upcoming comic book from Bad Idea. Before we even get started, what's new, Josh? Or
Hey,
Joshua? Is it Josh or
Josh is
Joshua?
fine. It's
Okay.
it's Josh is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Um. Nothing's new. We're doing a renovation on our bathroom, and it's awful and terrible, and
Hey.
and I hate it, and I'm not being very productive, and that's what's new,
Nice.
and it sucks. Yeah.
That's why I
Nice.
just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do
Period.
it.
I just don't. We
Yeah.
should
You
do
can
this
always
thing
not.
with this room. Like, nah, not
Right.
gonna do that.
Yeah, we had. This is like thrilling stuff for comic book people, but we had like a leak, and we're on upstairs above somebody,
Oh,
and we sort of had to. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, got it. All right. So going into Odin's
Thanks
Eye,
for asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Final five. You're in the final five here at the end of Bad Idea. So there will be
Yeah.
no more Bad Idea after this.
It's done.
So with one of the final five, tell us what's the pitch? What is Odin's Eye about?
Odin's Eye is about a little girl in a pre-Germanic little girl in the 6th century who begins to have a seizure disorder, and when she has seizures, she believes that Odin or Allfather or the Hanging God or the Wisdom God, or what do they have? You know, they have a bunch of different names for this person, comes to her and speaks to her, but she can't really understand what he says. And her chieftain of her village, you know, they begin to believe her, and they gather up a team of warriors to take her on a quest further north, because a vulva, or a witch, it's not really a witch, but in the simplest terms, we'll call her a witch. She has a vision along with the small child that they need to head north, and so they head north to see what happens. So they go on a big quest.
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm totally sold on that concept.
Nice.
It sounds super epic, and it looks super epic. So I'd say the most recent thing I've read from you was Goodnight Paradise, which is also awesome. Anyone watching should definitely pick that up. This seems like a major tonal shift.
Yes.
Would you say you're in uncharted territory, dealing with kind of like this historical timepiece involving like gods, quests, and what's sure to probably have a lot of combat as well?
I think that well, you know, I did Conan the Barbarian for a little bit, but that's probably the only, if we're just talking about like high fantasy, that's the closest thing I've done up to this point. So yeah, sort of. I mean, I definitely feel like you know, this is even though we put it in the 6th century, and even though the initial peoples or the culture, she's a geek, they're real people, and we sort of we care a little bit about what it was really like in the 6th century for the geeks for the geeks, for all of you, for the geeks. But really, this is not historical fiction. This is high fantasy, and so yeah, I think this is the biggest and the boldest I've gone in this direction. Yeah.
Okay. So just to dig in a little bit, like obviously I'm not asking for spoilers, but
I'm not giving spoilers.
Right. I would never dare to ask. And
yeah. Watch yourself.
For the actual story, can we expect, based off the title, can we expect like the Norse mythology to be involved in this story?
Yes. However, it is because it's the 6th century, we don't really understand a whole lot about what the pre-Germanics really believed at this time. So we know that some semblance of, for lack of a better, I'm going to use a lot of terms that aren't exactly technically accurate, but it'll help people understand, right? We don't really have a full-fledged understanding of whatever Odinism would have been at that time, or what these people would have believed, or their relationship to those stories. So we really only know about Norse mythology, for the most part, after the Christianization of the Germanic peoples. And this is way before the Christianization of the Germanic peoples. And it's way before what we culturally would call Vikings, even though Vikings really more of a verb than a noun. But, you know, as we understand it in modern pop culture, this is about 200 years before even that culture will emerge. So we have a lot of gray area to play with here. There's very, very few historical sources that come even close to this. The original Beowulf is written around this time period, so we can look to that for some, even though, but that's a big grand folk tale. We don't know what's historically accurate in Beowulf. There's a few sources. There is an Arabic historian who traveled amongst them, and they've written books and made movies about him. And he has some writings that depict a little bit about the Germanic peoples in that period, and the northern people. But basically, this is after, this is right around the time when they have become culturally isolated. They've been trading a great deal with Rome, and then expansionists of like in what is now France, other tribal expansionism cut off the Roman roads. And so there was a lot of education and everything going into the Germanic areas as they were trading mostly amber for Roman goods. And then once those roads were cut off, there became a kind of cultural isolation in that region. And so that's the period that our story takes place in. What was the question? The question was,
well, it was a lead-in to another question that I feel was answered, because one of the people in our Discord wanted us to ask you how you plan to differentiate the Odinn mythology from other representations. But I think that's it. There's
yes.
Yep.
You just learned everything there is to know about it. So
well, so that's right. And that was the question, right? Will it have a lot of Norse mythology? So yes, but I agree with what that, I believe where that questioner is going is like, do we really need another Norse mythology book? And I think the answer is most likely no, right? We have plenty, and we have some people who are really knowledgeable about Norse mythology, like Gaiman making comics right now with P. Craig Russell. So our take is, first of all, not meant to be anthropologically, sociologically, historically accurate, right, but also it's meant to occupy this great period when the Indo-European migration, like those stories that came out of like Southern Asia and migrated up. And so those are world tree stories, All Father who gives their eye, gives an eye for wisdom or poetry, depending on the translation, all that stuff. We are taking that, but we are looking at it in this very sort of in a subterranean way, like a different way. So I think that if you really love Norse mythology, you might hate this series. But if you're looking for something that's going to be different from any other kind of Nordic mythology book that you're going to pick up, then you might really enjoy it. Because the truth is all of Western fantasy is based on this Norse mythology. From the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is really Odin, to Game of Thrones, with their White Walkers and the Wall. This is all comes out of Norse mythology. And I just didn't want to fucking do that. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't want to. So I think we have a fresh, unique take on it. So I think you'll dig it, and it'll have a lot of the things that you kind of want from a Norse mythology story, but I'm hoping that we're gonna like spin it in a way that's gonna be fun and fresh again. I hope. So we'll see.
Cool.
You might hate it.
It's always a possibility.
Always a possibility.
Always possible, yeah.
But Joshua Dysart is writing it, so I heard he's pretty good.
I don't know. That's not what I heard.
Collaboration with Tomas Giorello, I think.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, I love it. Tomas.
How was that? How was that collaboration?
It's awesome. What do you mean? It's amazing. You like you as the writer, you like tear your heart out because you're desperate to make sure you're giving Tomas something that he A, wants to draw, and B, is going to like just really knock it out of the park, and then and then the pages come back and they're just otherworldly pages, and it fuels you to do better. Just stunning. Yeah, exactly. And it's gonna be really awesome. Like, I don't know if you're gonna like the story, but I guarantee you're gonna love the art. And so
awesome.
Like most comic book writers, I'm going to lean heavily on my artist to save the day here.
He's definitely a good one to lean on. He's awesome.
Yeah, man, he's a genius.
So I've really liked these Bad Idea titles so far. I'm reading ENIAC from Matt Kint. I'm reading Tankers from Venditti, and I love this publisher. But it is weird. It's a weird publisher, and you have to admit it's unusual, just their entire approach, or interesting, I think is what I wrote. It's an interesting approach. What's it like working for them? Do you kind of get to like live behind the curtain and see why they're doing what they're doing?
Yeah, I do. I do get to hear and see why they do things. I don't, I trust them. I think our marketing team is brilliant. I think everyone is talking about us. I would not have whipped this together of my own accord the way that, you know what I mean? I'm just not that kind of person. And I probably wouldn't be a part of this if I didn't trust Dinesh and Warren and, and Josh and the rest of the marketing team, Hunter and Adam and everybody. So yeah, man, I can't really speak too much to their attack on the market. I try my best to understand it. I hope people will be able to read my book. I've never had so many people ask me, how can I read this, when a book gets announced? And that could be frustrating, a little disheartening, but
shit, not going to be Comixology.
Nope, not Comixology, no trades.
Yeah, but maybe, I hope I don't write disposable comics. I write so that they can have a life and be discussed in the long term. So hopefully, this will be something that exists for a long time somehow. Yeah, because right now it looks like Unknown Soldier, which I'm very proud of, is like slipping out of print. So it would break my heart to have, other work like slip out of print. Actually a couple of books are very difficult to find that I wrote. So
I got my hand on Unknown Soldier.
Nice. Which the first one?
I got all 3 volumes.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. There's 4 volumes though.
Oh, really?
Cool. Yeah.
I need to find the 4th volume.
I guess so. Yeah.
So I already know what the answer is to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you have any other plans with Bad Idea besides this?
Well, it's ending, so
that's right.
Let me try to rephrase it. Let's say that Bad Idea went away and a new thing consisting of all the people from Bad Idea persisted beyond that. Would you be a part of that?
I would always be willing to work with Dinesh and Warren.
That's dope.
And we probably are. We probably are working on something. I don't know. Right. Maybe. Probably.
Who knows?
Most likely.
Yeah.
Awesome. I would love to read something like that.
Yeah, me too. I would love for you to read it too. So yeah.
Oh, were you going to add to that?
No, I wasn't. I was just all of this makes me so uncomfortable, man. All this like hucksterism and like hiding your cards. I'm a very open person. I'm not very good at it. So I know that Dinesh is afraid to tag me when they do like Bad Idea promotion on Twitter, because I just totally torpedo everything by being just honest and authentic. But
so you're gonna love this next question then.
Cool.
Is Odinns Eye? Could Odinns Eye have any narrative connections to what Matt Kint and Robert Venditti are doing with ENIAC and Tankers?
Because Bad Idea has never sent me a comp, I have never read ENIAC or Tankers, and I can definitively say that if you find a narrative connection between those 3 books, it is literally the gods making it happen.
Odin.
So yes, exactly. Exactly. It's all father, the hanging god. But so no, definitively not, or at least not intentionally. But if you can read it into it, then more power to you.
I can read into it. I have an outstanding imagination. I'll make it work.
And look, there's a future, or I guess there would have been a future if Bad Idea was an ending. Where we find a way to make this universe work, and that could be a fun exercise. And I would really like, I've never been the best team player when it came to shared universes, but I would really like to work with those guys on something that we all get to play in that happens in the same space and narratologically.
It's going to end up being in Donny Cates's crossover series.
Yeah. I don't know much about that series, but the title certainly makes it seem like that's a possibility.
Awesome.
All right, so quick transition back to Valiant as we do. So word on the street, there's
awesome.
a Harbinger movie in the works. Maybe not. Are we gonna see you? Are we gonna get a Stanley esque cameo out of you or what?
So my understanding is that movie is a Paramount film, and that they purchased that outright from Valiant for $2.5 million. I think. I'm not sure. These are what my sources tell me. It's not official. And so that would be up to Paramount. The thing is I don't know. Maybe if Paramount gives a shit about me, but I don't know that they do, and I'm pretty sure Valiant doesn't. So
you're gonna play Ion. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So since we're on this subject, not this subject, but the overall arching subject, what is your favorite ancient myth or body of ancient myths?
Oh man, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. I think that I have no idea how to answer that question.
Are you a Ra guy, a Zeus guy?
I mean, I don't. How do you tier them? How do you decide what's better? I feel like I'm fast. I'll tell you what I'm fascinated by. I'm less fascinated by our modern interpretations of these myths, and more fascinated about how they move based on human migrations. So, for instance, here's a perfect example. Right, there was a debate ages ago about whether Aladdin was Arabic or Chinese, because the original story opens in China, or it takes place in China.
But it's part of Arabian Nights, right? Or...
It's not originally. It was added later. It wasn't part of the original Arabian Nights stories. So, so ethno-folklorists have determined that basically that there are many Arabic stories from this time period that use China, about how it's definitively an Arabic story. And that to me is very, very interesting, because we have to do all kinds of interesting things to figure out where that story comes from. For instance, there is a lot of Islamic migration into China via the Silk Road, right? So when you have a story that's all about Muslims and mentions Judaism but doesn't mention Confucianism or Buddhism, does that necessarily mean it's not a Chinese story, right? So these are the things I'm more interested in. So then when it comes to which stories, which myth structures you're most interested in, it has to speak to that human migration. So what's interesting to me about Norse mythology, and the reason why we went so far back, or to the 6th century, is because I like the idea of the Indo-European connection. I like this idea of migrating up out of South Asia, these stories, and that they tie together, and that there's a real deep river of connectivity between certain South Asian narratives and what we will later call Nordic or pre-Germanic narratives. So for instance, take something as inflammatory as the swastika, right? this symbol that was splashed on tanks in the 20th century and represents genocide and is terrible, and and Germany has made it illegal. Well, this is one of the oldest symbols in humanity. You're going to find it on Indian Hopi blankets, and you're going to find it in Chinese foot reflexology, and you're going to find it in Buddhism, and you're going to find it on Thor's hammer in some Nordic stories. And so we have to ask ourselves, why? Where does this symbol come from? How come it's all over the world? Wherever human beings are, they carried this symbol. And that's more interesting to me than just picking one single like story cluster and being like, oh, that's cool, or like, I like this idea that human beings are carrying stories, they're telling stories to each other, they're carrying symbols, and it just reminds us about how we're all one family. Whereas if we isolate these into story clusters, we are reminded of our separations, our cultural separations, but really we're just one family with a whole battery of stories that kind of get retold and exchanged and mutated over time. And that's more interesting than being like Zeus is the best.
You like the story of stories.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great answer for a question you weren't ready for. And you got lucky, because you could have gotten one of his other favorites, which is, which way would you like to be murdered, or something. So that was
a good one. You know what? Now that you bring it up, though, this is your fault, Robo. This is your fault,
ladies and gentlemen.
So whoa. So Josh, let's say that you got to pick which way. Let's say you were going to be murdered, but you got to pick one way that you're definitely not getting murdered. You got to take one thing off the table. What's the one way that you least want to be murdered?
I probably don't want to burn to death.
That's a good one. Yeah,
that sounds like a lot, very painful. A very high fall sounds terrifying as well.
Yeah, all that time too.
Yeah,
I could live with a high fall, because I feel like the stop part is probably pretty quick,
pretty instantaneous. Yeah. It's the whatever, the 15 seconds of contemplation that get drawn out to. Yeah. I would most like to die by heavy duty morphine injection. That would be the best way to go.
That's it.
Just shoot me up with a shit ton of morphine.
Sometimes
you can do anything you want to me after that.
Yeah.
If this is too irrelevant, Robo, we can cut it. But as I'm thinking about it, so
most of this is getting cut. It's fine.
Okay, cool. So I've always had this like suspicion, like no information to back it up, but I've always suspected that no matter how you die, dying is bad. Like even if you die peacefully in your sleep, like the way we perceive time is really up to our brain. Like there's no set speed that time must be perceived. So I've always been kind of like afraid that, like, what if when you die, your death lasts centuries in your mind? Like that last moment of existing is actually feels longer than your entire lifetime.
Yeah. And we have new information on brain death too, which suggests a certain degree of cognition for longer than we thought after like heart failure or whatever. I think that but we also have evidence that when the brain begins to die, it releases a tremendous amount of endorphins and all kinds of exactly. So there's a real possibility that it's actually pretty awesome. That you're just like, and that's why I think we get, I'm a spiritual person, I guess, but I'm not a religious person. I'm sort of a spiritual atheist, but or a spiritual materialist. But I think that we do hear, it's a common story, right? Like people who flatline and then are brought back talk about the shining light, total euphoria. My wife, I think, if I can speak for her, she had a very, very bad allergic reaction when she was younger, and when things were going really rough for her bio organism, she I think dreamed that she was surrounded by puppies, like drowning in puppies. You know what I mean? Like I think, yeah, exactly. I think there is a mechanism in place that makes our final moments not quite as horrific, or I hope so. I mean, it seems, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least we have that to look forward to. So
yeah, it sounds awesome. But I'll say this is a really dark thing, but you brought up death.
That's right.
But recently a family member, my stepfather passed away, my mother's partner, and
Sorry to hear that.
and thank you. But but I am going to use it for Gristle here on this podcast. And what I mean is that he woke up, went to the bathroom, collapsed in the bathroom, hit his head, and when they found him was a mess, but also extreme grimace or of suffering or anger or something on his face when he was found. So I think he probably had a really rough time at the end while he struggled for life. So there's that too. I didn't want this to be too light or funny. So that's why I thought I'd throw that story in there, because I thought we were having too much fun. And I wanted to make sure, I don't like to, fun is not the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you could bring up death. We're going to get
this out or not?
We're going to get real, you know what I mean? But yeah. But should I not have said that story?
No.
I'm
still
that's what I'm saying. I was planning on cutting it out, but that is like so like we gotta keep that in there now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm still contemplating it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It sucks, you know. I mean, so I don't think, you know, death, right? The final frontier. Who knows?
All right.
And scene.
You got any other fucked up questions?
No, sorry, I'm done.
Ladies and gentlemen,
that'll teach you.
Ladies and gentlemen, envies, that is our show. Thank you so much.
Is that really the show?
That's it. I told you, short and sweet.
Is it because you guys have no idea what Odinns Eye is really about and can't?
We can't dissect it.
And the cool thing about Odinns Eye is like the month that it begins will be the month that it ends, so you'll know where we're at when it's all said and done.
That is exciting.
Is it a one shot?
No, it is. So technically it's 6 issues, but they're going to combine the first 2 issues into a single 72-page book. And so it's going to be 5 drops, one drop a week in December. So every single week.
If you want to hear interviews from industry pros, get first looks, and have access to endless comic content, wake up. Please wake up. You're in a coma. Your mother misses you.